So, welcome to my monthly conversation with Konstantin, one of the most unusual and respected voices to have come out of Russia. Many of you will know his Inside Russia YouTube channel. It is, I think, essential viewing to help understand what is going on now, both inside Russia and also with the huge Russian diaspora that is now spread around the world, having fled Vladimir Putin's dictatorship. Konstantin is a well-known YouTuber, and his comments insightfully dissect what is going on in Russia's authoritarian slide. You'll know that we've had many previous conversations. You'll probably also know that Konstantin has, quite unfairly by YouTube, been demonetized. He is very much I would say dependent, but he's very much has a loyal community that helps support the content he produces. And so I would encourage anyone watching this video, please do reach out, subscribe, and become one of those people that helps him to carry on doing the fantastic work that he's doing. Once you've done that, do help me out as well, if you can, with Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, and all the other things that help keep this channel going. Well, let's get into the issues. Konstantin, welcome back.
Jonathan, thank you so much for having me. This is a fantastic conversation each time we do it. It's very intellectually pleasing, therapeutic emotionally in some ways for me now, especially now. And it's just fantastic to be here and talking to you. Thank you.
Well, I'm very grateful for the relationship and the conversations. And, I know you look at a lot of the comments. I think many thousands of people get value out of each one of these conversations as well. Especially, and this is the first, question. It seems the last few weeks that we have woken up to a very disorienting world. One week you have Trump bashing Ukraine. It looks like he's thrown Ukraine under the bus. Everybody is freaking out. Fast forward a week later, and Trump personally, as you pointed out before we hit the air, I hadn't seen that yet, but Trump personally greets Zelensky outside the White House, compliments him on the way he's dressed. And then Zelensky has given Trump the world heavyweight boxing champion Usyk, the actual belt he won as a gift, which for someone like Trump, oh my goodness, he's going to hang that in a prominent position somewhere in Mar-a-Lago. You can kind of guarantee that, if not the Oval Office. It's disorienting, but is it a strategy on Trump's part? That we freak out, we have despair, we have relief. It seems to me there's some kind of negotiating technique going on there, because certainly maybe Putin and some of his propagandists seem equally disoriented by this.
Jonathan, I'll have very short answer to that. I don't know. I don't think that anyone knows except for Donald Trump, perhaps his closest associates, friends, or family. I don't know, but I sure hope that he knows what he's doing, and he's doing that on purpose. Because if he's doing that on purpose, he is succeeding. He's definitely disorienting Putin and the Russians. And I hope that in the future, I will say, Jonathan, Donald Trump really gave us a lot of stress, a lot of, worrying, but it all turned out well for Ukraine, and he really knows what he's doing. He's really the master of the deal. I really am hoping that I will say that. I don't know
We
whether
hope
I
for
will
that.
or not, but that,
We
yeah.
don't know though.
Just like just like what Donald Trump says, I don't know that, but I hope so.
And it may be he doesn't, have a conscious strategy. Some of this may be just instinctive. But let's examine the effect that it is having on. I mean, everyone's focusing on what, Ukraine's reaction, Ukrainians' reaction. I unfortunately, I think a lot of what has happened, certainly last week, it's very triggering, especially for displaced Ukrainians or those in Kharkiv or places that are constantly being struck. They still remain resilient. They're not fighting for the US or anybody else. They're fighting for themselves and their own survival. But it is quite kind of triggering. It is emotionally, psychologically very stressful to see all these headlines, to feel a sense of betrayal and abandonment. and the disorientation that we're all feeling. But what's not really being focused on is the effect it's having in Russia. You have Putin, who seems to be falling over himself to try and propose an alternative minerals deal to match the one that Zelensky has now seemingly negotiated. And from what I can tell, Z-Patriots propagandists are they're not just disoriented, they're kind of losing their minds. Like, well, what did we fight this war for if Putin is going to give everything to Trump on a platter?
You have no idea. Oh boy. They are. I have studied this particular issue in Russia, and it's very dynamic. Things happen every day. Something happened today. Quite a few Z-Patriots spoke out today. There's a range of emotions from disbelief, shock, disliking the situation to a complete dismay, a complete anger. It's a state of fury. And just like you said, the question is, what the hell is going on? And, they're not saying hell, they're using stronger words. And what have we been fighting for? And the situation is, it's at the same time, it's humorous, tragic for Russia, sarcastic, you name it. Because for 3 years, Putin and his propaganda brainwashing Russian people, soldiers, Z-Patriots, regular folks. And their biggest message is America is behind everything. We're not fighting with Ukraine. Ukraine is our neighbor. Unfortunately, we are forced to fight with NATO. And behind NATO, the evil country, the USA, the Satanists, the evil West, our enemy, who wants to destroy Russia's sovereignty, steal all the resources and all of that for 3 years, just like that, without any explanation. Why Vladimir Putin changes his side, he flips 180% and says, well, America is a great country. Russia and America must have good relationship. Unfortunately, that relationship placed on pause 3 years ago. We don't really know why, but now we are getting the relationship back. We're exchanging diplomatic missions. We're bringing the ambassador back, the diplomats back, and so forth. And Russia is ready to take on American companies. Please, American companies come in, American investors come in. We have plenty of projects in Siberia, rare earth, aluminum, hydropower plant, a huge one. Please be our partners. Let's do business together. Let's you make money in Russia. On top of that, we'll give you some of the resources in the new territories that Russia stole from Ukraine, okay? And all these people are sitting there and not even thinking. They're saying, they're very loud about that, saying, what? And just literally 3 hours ago, I was reading the situation's heating up because there are stronger and stronger statements in the social media of this prominent Z bloggers, Z patriots, the Vayenkory, and so forth. Not happy. Not happy is understatement. They're furious, and basically a lot of them come out and say, this is treason by Putin. This is betrayal.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, it's unlikely these people will be able to organize in a political sense because, let's face it, I mean, many of them loathe each other. In some ways, like the liberal opposition, many of them are fighting against each other and dislike each other intensely. So it's unlikely you're going to get some organized sort of revolution against Putin. But it is significant to hear these negative voices because usually only a handful, step outside of the script that's been written for them, and there's a certain level of danger. How is Putin going to react to this? I mean, he even had this session this week where he spoke to the FSB board in Moscow, where he basically declared victory. which is an extraordinary statement at this point of time, given the battlefield sort of situation. He declared victory in the war. We'll unpack that in a minute, because I think there's some interesting sides to that. But how is this going to manifest? Because he could well turn around and start wielding the KGB or the FSB to take out anybody who starts to contradict him. I mean, this could go in any number of different ways.
He he can. You said he can. No, he has done that already. He has ordered to rid of those opposing him. This is such an incredible topic. Again, someone would someone would tell me 2 months ago, I wouldn't believe. This is crazy. All right. This is what's going on. First of all, those Z bloggers, prominent figures in the Russian media community, in the propaganda even, they are not standing up, but they are speaking up. Never happened before, because they all are paid by the Russian government. They are part of the propaganda machine. They are given narratives. This isn't the narrative they're given. Okay, they're speaking up. And you're right, they're not enough to start a revolution or to start a mutiny, no. But I like to go back to Russian history, because Russian history has a tendency of repeating itself. When the Bolshevik movement was born in the 19th century, okay, there was the first Bolshevik newspaper. It was called Iskra, Sparkle. And its motto was, from the sparkle, there will be a fire. The sparkle will cause a fire. And that's exactly what happened. Iskra, the sparkle, was printed late 19th century, and it printed for so long. And then in 1917, that sparkle, many sparkles, they started the fire. And that was the Bolshevik Revolution. This could be very well be a sparkle or a bunch of sparkles. Because people, we discussed it before, Russian people are very tense right now, very angry, very furious. They don't know how to where to apply their anger. They're looking for explanation, reasonable explanation. For example, we discussed a month or so ago, and they find those they can apply their anger, and the most peaceful targets right now, most safe targets, are just regular folks, the neighbors, okay? But then things can change. They can get ideas, they can read, and definitely read, because the Z bloggers, they have, by Corey, they have a huge audience in the millions and millions of subscribers and readers. And readers trust them. Readers know that these people, most of them are in the front lines, near the front lines. They know what's going on. And when they sincerely speak up against Putin and against his decision and ask this very furious questions, what the hell is going on? Are we being betrayed? Is Russia being sold to America? Then we never know how it's going to be picked up. Okay, that's one part of your question. The second part is, Vladimir Putin knows that well. He is afraid of that, because I think that these people who speak up and who have trust of other people in them, they are becoming a threat to Putin. He understands that they need to be, either they need to shut up or they need to be neutralized one way or another. And he's not, you see, he's not giving an explanation why he's offering America resources, why he's offering American investors to come and start working in Russia. Wait a second, the very same companies that were forced out of Russia, were blamed for, trying to take Russian markets and all of it. Now they're just brought back with arms wide open. No explanation, and he understands that can raise more and more questions. So what does he do? He has a very effective suppression machine. he calls up a meeting with Siloviki, those agencies on the ground who are armed and have a right to use violence against Russians, and they use violence very gladly, happily. And he orders them to get rid of all enemies of this decision to make peace in Russia. That the same person who started the war, who had opportunity every single day to stop the war and bring peace to Russia and to Ukraine, just to order to stop the war and pull the troops out. The very same person now, 3 years later, is ordering his Siloviki, okay, the oppression machine, going after those who ask this questionable peace, like what's going on. They all of a sudden enemies, okay? And Vladimir Putin, when he orders to read, he doesn't specify how. He said, please keep the situation under control, take actions to neutralize those actors who are acting on behalf of the Western elites. She used to be NATO and the USA. Now it's the Western elites who don't want peace, who want to continue war, the warmongers, This is also a drastic change. And all the Siloviki, they can explain to themselves his order differently. What is to neutralize? What is to get rid?
That
I'm not feeling
ambiguity is
easy
also
about that.
classic as well, isn't it? It's like, you sort of
Yes,
indicate you want something done, but you don't exactly say how. And sometimes in
exactly.
dictatorships, you'll give multiple people the same kind of orders as well. And this is not just the first pivot, because the first pivot really was Russia towards China, which, again, it wasn't entirely 100% embraced by Z-Patriots. The idea that Russia was moving not as independent, new global empire, great Eurasian empire, but was rapidly becoming a kind of minion or surrogate of China. And now he's pivoting to become a minion or surrogate of the US. It's quite extraordinary.
And it's happening fast. It's all happened in 1 week. Okay, a little over 1 week. There was a first call of Trump to Putin, first conversation and meeting very fast, and Putin started, erupting with these ideas to give America rare earth and bring American companies in and so forth. So the head is spinning, definitely, and China all of a sudden is the country who has blood of Russian soldiers on its hands, who is not our friend, but we need to analyze, understand who that is. Perhaps an enemy, perhaps just a competitor. All of a sudden it's not so close friend, and my head is also spinning, or rather, the world is spinning around me. I think that's a more correct way to say it.
And it seems that whereas it's only manifesting publicly now, the causes of this change are likely to be much more long term. And of course, some of them are economic in character. And we've seen China supporting Russia in certain ways, but it is not unlimited, unrestricted support. And certainly, we've discussed this before, China has not invested in Russia to build it up or to create it, any sense that it is a peer or an equal. Rather, it has extracted as much value and strategic and material value as it can from Russia, and then one gets the impression is spitting it out. India as well, refused to transact in rubles, it insisted on rupees. And this is a very, I would say, short-term, self-interested transaction arrangement rather than a really deep strategic one. At this point, we see some evidence that China is withdrawing even further from that relationship, or even material support. That must put immense pressure on the Russian economy. So is Putin starting to realize that actually he hasn't got any gas left in the tank, both metaphorically and literally.
I think he's realized that, realized it a long time ago. I mean, if you have a complete control, absolute power over the country, I mean, you've got to know the truth, what's really going on in the economy. Um, 3 years ago, it was absolutely clear where Russia was heading to. And now I can't say it's the destination, but then it's just a situation when it has become much worse. And then things have become visible. Before was sort of everything was under the carpet, all this changes in Russian economy, because Russia simply had a large savings account and Putin was flooding everything, covering with money, basically, bailing out with money, extra money. But money's gone. And we talked about it a lot in the past. And I think that he's rushing these negotiations and he's offering unthinkable to the Americans because he knows that Russia cannot go much longer in this mode. What he's doing is not sustainable. Okay, and Russian army is not doing well at all. For goodness sake, they have donkeys. I saw a report today. A Russian soldier says, "Hey, I bought this donkey because I don't have any other means of communication, transportation with my HQ. Things of this nature. Things are not well. They keep on raising sign-up bonuses. They just don't have that many people who sign up. This river has dried up."
And there's
And he
data,
needs a way
interestingly,
out.
there's data showing that the offensive capabilities, the number of attacks, offensives, has steadily been declining over the last 3 months, especially. It's very clear on a trajectory going down, which is indicative of lack of resources. And we've both seen what I still think are actually tragic images. Is okay, they're an offensive army, but you've got images of people who are hauled out of the hospital on crutches, some even crawling towards the front. I mean, it's horrifically inhuman, but also strategically absolutely desperate.
You're right, right on. I've seen images as well. I've seen images of military police beating those on crutches for refusing going back to the front lines voluntarily, things like that. So it's not sustainable. Putin knows his time has come. Well, not his, but the country's. And Jonathan, we've been talking on and off for what, almost 3 years now. And we've said it many, many times that the way Russian economy and Russian society is operating, living is not sustainable. Okay, and then we finally start seeing the collapse, violent, fast collapse. And I've said many times that I believed and still believe that the victory for Ukraine will not come from the front lines, but from inside Russia. And it seems like things are moving in that direction because Putin has been in Zugzwang for 3 years. He cannot overtake Ukraine, simply not powerful army, not too many people, and not strong economy. But also he cannot withdraw troops and stop the war because he has nothing to show for it. There's no victory. So now he's taking a desperate step. Okay, he's turning things around. He's trying to win Americans at any cost, even offering now at what Z-Patriots call a treasonous act, Russia's resources. The very same thing he had been afraid for so much, America's after our resources, America wants to destroy our sovereignty. That's what he's doing with his own hands. As trading partners, they're of different caliber. India does not have a great trade relationship with Russia. India has been very useful in the last couple of years because it is buying Russian oil. It was buying at large quantities. The only two customers left are India and China. And India stopped buying oil quite some time ago. And basically, it's not a partner any longer. And China, of course, been an extremely important partner because Russia doesn't produce much. It imports everything from China, from consumer goods to military technology to, you name it. And it relied on China so much, thinking China would bail Russia out in terms of the international sanctions. I remember the politicians were saying, well, look, we're not afraid of be getting kicked out of SWIFT, the international transfer bank transfer system, because in this case, we and Chinese, we create our own transactional system, and it's going to be competing with SWIFT. So it's even better for us. Well, that didn't happen. Didn't age well because Chinese never even considered creating unified payment system with Russia. They used and abused Russia and Russians quite a few times. For example, they lured a lot of Russians, private people, into opening bank accounts at the Chinese banks in Russia and getting union pay cards and paying just crazy fees up to $500 for signing up. And then a few months later, there was just like close accounts of those Russians. That's basically, well, that's not a very good practice, let's put it this way. Then they did not invest anything in Russia as Russians hoped they would. The first industry that jumps into mind is car manufacturing. Some Chinese had plans and they actually bought a couple plants in Russia, and they had long-term plans of creating, some kind of manufacturing there, or at least parts of manufacturing process of different cars. But then the Chinese company, the Chinese government ordered the Chinese companies, the manufacturers, to leave Russia. It forbade to invest into Russia. Okay, so that kind of actions Russia received from China, and of course the latest, the Chinese have slowed down tremendously traffic speed of railroad cars, the trains, getting shipments from China to Russia. And then they're banning Russian trade companies more and more from being able to bring anything from China. I think that's the response to this wind of change in Russia, the mood changing. And the latest I heard that most of banks have strictly placed bans on dealing with Russian companies and Russian customers.
Absolutely
So
extraordinary. And
China,
oil
yeah,
trades as well are being cut right down too.
yeah, I've heard of Russian oil tankers just sailing there in the neutral waters, not far from China, Chinese border, because the Chinese simply are refusing to let them in, let alone to buy their oil. Okay, so
It's
it's very
extraordinary, isn't
extraordinary.
it? I mean, you hear, if you go back and play clips of Putin's speeches over many years, he will often use the phrase in relation to NATO and the West, "Nas обманули," they swindled us, they they told us lies. But this is exactly what China's doing. It is exactly. I mean, Western governments put pressure on multinational companies, Western multinational companies, to leave Russia, and they didn't because we can't order our companies to do this and do that. And reality is exactly the inverse of what is driving policy here. And if you compare to Putin's historic statements, this really is a topsy-turvy world.
Jonathan, you know what? You gotta admit that me and you, we have been telling them for a long, long time how things would turn out. They should have listened to us, to Silicon Curtain and to Inside Russia.
Absolutely. Absolutely should. That won't stop. I mean, despite being weakened significantly, this isn't going to stop Putin and his class of sort of KGB, FSB trained quasi, mafia thugs. This won't stop them from trying to do election interference. This won't stop them from investing in hybrid information operations. This won't stop, cyber attacks. We see in Romania an attempt at state capture, which was thwarted. This won't stop them from trying to undermine the UN, the ICC, the ICJ, destroy the EU and what it perceives as these international institutions and bodies. Despite being exhausted, this will not stop them uh, trying to project aggression around the world. Um, in that sense, is Putin going to exhaust himself and his resources because he simply cannot stop with this projected aggression?
He has exhausted already. There are reports coming out from different institutions, such as the central bank, unofficial rumors, but some rumors I filter them and I find there are quite a few are trustworthy. Things are actually worse than we know. The emission of money has been absolutely tremendous. The inflation is growing at much higher rate than officially admitted. Um, Things are not well, and it's being shown right now. He doesn't have that many resources. Of course, the priority is always the military, the KGB, the police, Siloviki, and they will be hit hard the latest. Not the late, the last. Um, Regular people are in for a very big surprise in 2025. I mean, already I call to Russia and they first thing they do, they start complaining. Oh, this is so expensive now. Oh, this is bad. It's become so much worse. Why is this happening? Well, you know, he will try. Here, I agree with you. He will try to disrupt the Western democracies. Of course, Europe is the enemy number one for him.
That now is
Propaganda is
about, yep,
bashing Europe.
absolutely.
Yeah, the United States, oh, forget it's friends and business partners now. Okay, we're gonna give our country part of it to Americans. I mean, come on, two great countries. We've always been friends. Oh, 3 years? Nah, don't bring it up anymore. It wasn't us. We never said that. I don't believe I never said that. No, I don't believe I ever said that. That's what Putin probably will be saying in the future.
Yeah,
But
we didn't do that. We didn't bomb
oh, no,
cities. They were
us?
bombing
No, that wasn't
themselves. No, no,
us.
no.
The Europe, of course, it was NATO. They acted as if they were us, and then, of course, and I think that's what's gonna be this. John, this is so crazy.
It's
Oh,
very,
it's
very
insane.
messed up. Of course it
It's
is.
disturbing.
But
But I think that he's not going to have resources to actively change things, to influence massively. There will be attempts, though. I agree with that.
and Trump, I think, is intent on trying to have a peace. He doesn't care what kind of peace. He may not even care how long that peace exists. And we were sort of discussing his motives before we came on air. I interpret him as being, this extreme transactional, yes, but he's maybe looking at this not as in Russia are friends, Ukraine are enemies, etc., because that changes day to day. He may just be looking at this and saying, okay, there's a finite window here to grab as much as we can. There's a finite window for a temporary peace in which we can get rich quick. Okay, well, let's just do that. And he's not thinking to do it on behalf of Ukraine or Russia or anybody else. It's on behalf of himself and his, friends and donors and investors. So he may well be, and this is where I think the Z-Patriots are getting really crazy about. It looks like he's quite prepared to. He tried to extort Ukraine. That didn't work. They negotiated hard and they've ended up with a good deal. And he's trying to extort Russia at the same time. He sees them both as coming from a position of relative weakness. And that actually is kind of extraordinary because you kind of, I think, had Biden who wanted both countries to wear each other out until they were forced to do peace. Trump is kind of waiting for the same, but so that he can make as much money out of the situation as he can.
that man is very hard to predict. And I agree with you when you say that Trump is not about, doesn't care much about Ukraine, doesn't care at all about Russia. He cares about the United States and probably most of all about himself, his donors, political members, associates, or whatever. Um, I think that's really hard to argue with that.
How might Putin be able to sort of declare victory? Because we started the episode, and this is sort of final question. We started the episode with this idea that he's looks on the verge of either continuing the war, and this could go very badly for him, or declaring some kind of peace, and that also is equally risky because it would be seen as a defeat by Z-Patriots. What he might do is say, look, maybe Ukraine isn't that important anymore because we've split the US from its traditional allies. We've split the US from Europe. We've degraded and destroyed these international institutions. And to an extent, and we've also eroded this concept of American democracy. Look, we've made them much more like us. They now swim in the same sea as we do, which is a world of informal power, a world of mafia tactics, a world without rule of law. We did this, and he could try and sell that as a victory. That might work with elements of the Sylvia Key. Is that going to work in any way with the Z Patriots? Do they really care about those kind of subtleties?
It initially it will not work, okay? Because first of all, I think he will declare the victory soon. He will declare that the goals of the special military operation have been reached. And I don't know what he will come up with, but I'm sure that's going to be something like, driving NATO away from our borders, showing them now they know better. Why isn't the goal of this war? Okay, might as well can sell it as a goal. They have seen that the Russian men are heroic fighters and they will die for the motherland. Now, I don't know. The West is weakened, like you said. I'm sure that the propaganda will come up with a myriad of ways how to declare victory. And some Russians will probably believe him because I don't believe in Russians anymore. I believe that they believe in anything. Okay. And those who will not believe, because they're among Russians, there's still some who are decent, who oppose the war, who ask questions. Okay. Most are very afraid of the oppressing machine of the Siloviki, but they still ask questions. They still, at least themselves. And then when we'll see what the treason, real treason, because Putin, it turns out that Putin started the war for nothing because he declared one thing and now he's doing absolutely different thing, claiming it the victory. So they will start asking questions. And for those who will stand up or at least speak up, there will be the KGB saying, oh, you are working for the foreign intelligence, for the foreign elites, the Western elites who don't want peace. No, I want peace also, but look, this isn't what Putin said. That's foreign influence. We can smell it. Now tell us who you work for. And they do things not so nice to you, and you admit. Just like it was in the 30s in the Red Terror, because everyone admitted they worked for the Japanese intelligence, for German intelligence, French intelligence, and so forth. Okay, the KGB knows how to get this this
Confessions.
confessions, yes. And that's what's gonna happen. They make a few public cases so everyone sees and gets scared, and that's it. Just like it worked in the USSR, things didn't make sense, many of them, but still people were repeating after the party. This is where we're heading to.
Showing loyalty, even though the nonsense is palpable, and even though the message changes from one week to the next, you have to signal your loyalty. by repeating the words you're told. I mean, people are going to be upset with this. We're seeing some of that happening in the US political system as well. One week you're expected to say one thing, the next week you're expected to say another. We're still focusing on the value of the words, the meaning of the words. They no longer matter. Words are there to signal loyalty to the king, the czar, and little more.
I'm thinking of a great masterpiece by George Orwell. Is it Sir George Orwell? Was he knighted? Remember how they were changing narratives and changing the pictures of the world? Today we have one enemy. Tomorrow we have that enemy is our friend, and we fight in another enemy, and so forth. So that's exactly what's happening in Russia. It's so they're doing it so I don't know
There's
effortlessly.
another book which I don't know if you've seen, but it's by Vladimir Sorokin, and it's called Norma. That's a similar kind of concept there, where
Normal,
it's
no,
it's it's like a parody of the Soviet Union, where but people are given this norma. You have to eat your daily norma, and it's just this thing you have to consume, and it's a show of loyalty. And you get through most of the book not knowing what that thing is, so you kind of assume it's something, fairly innocuous, and it turns out that it's literal shit. You have to eat feces to show your loyalty to the regime. But the whole book, then you have to go back and reread the book from the start because it's like, oh my God, that changes everything you've just read. But yeah, that's a fairly gross satirical version of that. We're almost out of time there. I mean, I'm not even going to ask you to predict what's going to happen next because there's really no point there. But that's why we're meeting up more frequently so that we can try to interpret this fire hose of news that is coming at us. Things are accelerating, and I think it helps people to orientate themselves in what is a very disorienting time by hopefully listening to these conversations.
it's been a pleasure. Thank you so very much, and definitely cannot predict anything, cannot forecast anything. Um, at Tashkent Breakfast Club, at the community, Russian Ukrainian community here in Tashkent, last year we made up a contest, and we called it Cassandra. We came up with a set of questions, and each one of us answered them. And the questions were our forecast for 2024. And recently, last week, we came up with the results. And we decided, it was interesting, very amusing contest. We decided to hold another contest for 2025, Cassandra 2025. What's going to happen in Russia in 2025? But I'm not going to participate because last year was, well, I answered most questions correctly. This year, I know that I cannot answer them. It would be just, you know, um, pointless because I don't know what's going to happen. No one knows. There aren't any experts that can forecast or predict something. They can't even analyze what's going on right now because it's so doesn't make sense. Okay, there are some laws of physics moving this thing that the current situation that we don't understand. Okay, so I won't even dare to predict or forecast anything. But
Who
with
knows
our
what we'll be talking about
conversations,
in a month's time,
yes,
6 months' time.
absolutely, absolutely. I'm sure that's going to be something very different from now. And that's why we have this bi-weekly conversations. I cover the news and I give my opinions on my channel daily, and I watch your channel, which is fantastic. It has grown to be one of the best sources of professional opinions on the internet. And let's keep on doing this every couple of weeks, and then
Definitely,
we'll
it has
keep
immense
people
value.
updated.
Yeah. I think it really does have
Yes.
immense value, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate all the support as well, and from your loyal audience as well. For now, I think that's it. But Konstantin, thank you so much again for raking through the sort of crazy stories.
Thank you, Jonathan.